The January frost bit through Austin Daniel Hale's compression running gear as he maintained his methodical pace along the pristine streets of Boston's Beacon Hill. His breaths came out in measured puffs of steam, synchronized with the rhythmic pounding of his feet against the pavement. Even at 5:30 a.m. he kept perfect time, just as he did with everything else in his life. Check watch. Adjust pace. Breathe. Repeat. The ritual was as familiar to him as the weight of responsibility he carried as CEO of Hale Luxury Hotels. At a Dyson 35, Austin had built an empire that most could only dream of. Yet the sprawling penthouses and glittering ballrooms of his hotels felt as empty as the streets he now ran through. His expensive running shoes crushed the fresh snow beneath them, leaving precise imprints that marked his territory in this exclusive neighborhood. The early morning darkness wrapped around him like a familiar cloak, hiding the hard lines of his face and the tension in his broad shoulders. At 6'1", his athletic frame cast a long shadow under the streetlights, a solitary figure in a world that was still sleeping. Austin checked his watch again, a habit that had become more pronounced since his last failed fertility treatment, 3 months ago. Time was the one thing he couldn't control, couldn't bend to his will with money or influence. The doctor's words still echoed in his mind during these quiet moments. Extremely low probability of natural conception. He had everything a man could want, except the one thing he desperately needed: a family of his own. A gust of wind cut through the empty street, carrying with it a sound that didn't belong in his perfectly ordered world. Austin slowed his pace, his green eyes narrowing as he tried to identify the source. There it was again, faint but unmistakable. A baby's cry. He stopped completely, his heart rate monitor beeping in protest at the sudden change. The cry came again, weaker this time, from the direction of a nearby alley. Austin's muscles tensed as he moved toward the sound, his mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. The narrow passage between two brownstones was dark, but he could make out the shapes of trash bins lined up against one wall. The crying grew more distinct, and Austin felt his chest tighten. He pulled out his phone, switching on its flashlight, and the beam cut through the shadows. What he saw made his blood run cold. Tucked between two garbage bins wrapped in thin blankets that offered little protection against the brutal New England winter, was a tiny baby. The infant's skin was pale, almost blue from the cold, with wisps of golden hair peeking out from beneath the inadequate covering. "Dear God," Austin whispered, his carefully maintained composure cracking. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his running jacket and reached for the child. The baby was so small, so fragile. A little girl, he realized as he carefully cradled her against his chest. Her cry had weakened to a whimper, her tiny body shivering violently. His training kicked in. All those first aid courses he'd required for his hotel staff suddenly became vital. Austin tucked the baby inside his jacket, trying to share his body heat while protecting her from the wind. With trembling fingers, he dialed 911. "I need an ambulance," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "I've found an abandoned newborn." He rattled off the location, his eyes never leaving the tiny face pressed against his chest. "She's hypothermic, please hurry." While waiting for the ambulance, Austin paced the width of the alley, holding the baby close and speaking softly to her. "Stay with me, little one, help is coming." His words formed small clouds in the frigid air. "You're going to be okay. I've got you." The baby's eyes fluttered open, startling blue, like a summer sky, and locked onto his face. Something shifted in Austin's chest, a feeling he couldn't name. For a moment, the world stood still, and all his carefully constructed walls began to crack. The wail of approaching sirens broke the spell. Soon the quiet street was awash in flashing lights, and emergency responders swarmed around them. Austin found himself reluctant to hand over his precious cargo, but he knew she needed immediate medical attention. "Sir, we need to take her now," a paramedic said gently, reaching for the baby. Austin nodded, carefully transferring the tiny bundle. The loss of her weight in his arms left him feeling strangely empty. "Would you like to ride with us to the hospital?" the paramedic asked, noting his obvious concern. We'll need a statement anyway. Austin glanced at his watch, an instinctive gesture that now seemed meaningless. He had a board meeting in 3 hours, contracts to review, calls to make. His entire day was scheduled down to the minute. Yes, he heard himself say, already climbing into the ambulance. I'm coming with her. The doors closed behind him, and Austin watched as the paramedics worked on the baby, their movements quick and efficient. They inserted an IV, wrapped her in special warming blankets, and monitored her vital signs. Each small cry she made sent a jolt through his heart. She's responding well, one of the paramedics assured him. You found her just in time. Just in time. The words echoed in Austin's mind as he sat there still wearing his running gear, his schedule completely derailed. He realized his hands were shaking, and he clasped them together tightly, trying to regain his composure. The baby made a soft sound, and Austin leaned forward, drawn to her like a magnet. She was looking at him again, those incredible blue eyes seeming to pierce straight into his soul. His throat tightened with emotion he couldn't suppress. Do you know her name? The paramedic asked, filling out a form. Austin shook his head, then found himself saying, Ellie. The name came from nowhere, felt right somehow. She looks like an Ellie. The paramedic smiled and wrote it down. Ellie it is, then, at least for now. As the ambulance raced through the awakening city, Austin couldn't take his eyes off the tiny girl who had literally been thrown away like trash. Who could do such a thing? The thought made his jaw clench. He had spent years trying to create a child, and someone had discarded this perfect little being as if she were nothing. His phone buzzed, probably his assistant, wondering why he wasn't at his usual post-run smoothie spot. The daily schedule he'd lived by for years suddenly seemed trivial. All that mattered was this moment, this child, this miracle he'd stumbled upon in the darkness. When they reached the hospital, everything happened quickly. Ellie was whisked away to the NICU, and Austin was led to a waiting area where police officers asked him detailed questions about the discovery. He answered mechanically, his mind still with the baby, wondering if she was warm enough, if she was scared, if she was going to be okay. Mr. Hale, one of the officers said, you did a good thing today. Not everyone would have stopped. Austin nodded absently, checking his watch again. The board meeting would be starting soon, but for the first time in his adult life, he didn't care. Something more important had happened, something that made spreadsheets and profit margins seem meaningless. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. Cancel everything, he said simply. Something's come up. As he ended the call, a nurse approached him with a gentle smile. Mr. Hale, would you like to see her? She's stabilized and she seems to calm down when we mention your voice. Austin stood, his heart racing. Yes, he said, then cleared his throat and repeated more firmly. Yes, I would. As he followed the nurse through the sterile corridors, Austin Daniel Hale, the man who planned everything, who never left anything to chance, felt his carefully ordered world shifting on its axis. Something told him his life would never be the same after this morning, and for once he was okay with that. 3 weeks had passed since that fateful morning, and Austin's world had shifted in ways he never expected. The NICU had become as familiar to him as his corner office, and his expensive suits now carried the faint scent of hospital sanitizer. Every day after work, he would visit Ellie, watching her grow stronger behind the clear walls of her incubator. Someone's eager to see you, Nurse Chen said as Austin walked through the unit's double doors right on schedule at 6:15 p.m. She smiled knowingly at the stuffed bear tucked under his arm, another addition to Ellie's growing collection. How is she today? He asked, already moving toward the familiar incubator. His hand automatically went to check his watch, a gesture so ingrained he didn't even notice it anymore. Getting stronger by the hour. She's quite the fighter. Austin approached the clear chamber that housed the tiny girl who had captured his heart. Ellie was awake, her bright blue eyes tracking his movement. She'd gained weight, her cheeks filling out with a healthy rosiness that made his chest tight with emotion. Hey there, Ellie Bear, he whispered, reaching through the port to touch her tiny hand. Her fingers immediately wrapped around his index finger, and that now familiar warmth spread through his chest. These moments made everything else fade away, the board meetings, the expansion plans, the empire he'd built. Here, he was just Austin, the man who'd found a miracle in an alley. The sound of rushed footsteps broke through the unit's quiet atmosphere. Austin turned, his protective instincts immediately on alert. A young woman burst through the doors, her copper-red hair wind-blown, and her blue eyes wild with desperate hope. "Please," she gasped to the startled nurse. "I'm looking for a baby girl." She would have been brought in 3 weeks ago. Her voice cracked. "She's mine." Austin felt his body go rigid. The woman was breathtaking in an unconventional way, with delicate freckles scattered across her nose and cheeks, and a natural grace that seemed at odds with her current state of distress. She wore a simple midi dress under a cardigan, and her fingers kept twisting a strand of her wavy hair, a nervous gesture that spoke of deep anxiety. Nurse Chen stepped forward, her expression professional but cautious. "Ma'am, we need to follow proper procedures. If you could come with me too." "I gave birth to her at Massachusetts General," the woman interrupted, her words tumbling out. "January 3rd. She was taken while I was sleeping. Please, I've been searching everywhere." She pulled out a folded paper from her bag with trembling hands. "I have my discharge papers and I've filed a police report. Her father, he took her. I didn't know what he'd done until it was too late." Austin's grip tightened protectively around Ellie's tiny fingers, but something in the woman's voice, raw pain and desperate love, reached through his defenses. Security arrived along with the head of the NICU and a social worker. The woman, who introduced herself as Lena Grace Whitmore, was taken to a private room to verify her story. Austin remained by Ellie's side, his mind racing. He'd wondered, about her parents, of course, had even hired private investigators to look into the case, but he'd never expected this. An hour later, Nurse Chen returned. "Mr. Hale, would you join us in the conference room?" Austin reluctantly left Ellie's side, straightening his tie as he walked, another unconscious habit. In the small room, Lena sat with the social worker and a police detective. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she sat straight, dignity evident in every line of her body. "Everything checks out," the detective said quietly. "Ms. Whitmore is indeed the birth mother. She's been searching for her daughter since January 3rd, when the baby's father removed the infant from the hospital without consent." Lena's fingers twisted in her hair again as she spoke. "I told him I was pregnant and he demanded I get an abortion. When I refused, he disappeared." Her voice strengthened. "I thought that was the end of it. I gave birth alone, and the nurses said my baby was perfectly healthy. But when I woke up," her voice caught. "He must have been watching, waiting. He took her while I was sleeping off the delivery." The social worker nodded. "We've confirmed her story with Massachusetts General. They have security footage of the father taking the baby. There's a warrant out for his arrest." Austin's mind was spinning. He looked at Lena more carefully now, saw the shadows under her eyes, the determination in her jaw, the way her hands shook slightly as she gripped her paper cup of water. This wasn't some irresponsible mother who had abandoned her child. This was a woman who had been fighting for her baby from the beginning. "How did you find her?" he asked softly. Lena's eyes met his, fierce and direct. "I've been going to every hospital within 100 miles. Someone at Mass General mentioned a baby brought in from Beacon Hill found by a businessman." She swallowed hard. "I knew it had to be her. I could feel it." A knock at the door interrupted them. Nurse Chen entered with a tablet showing Ellie's latest vital signs. "She's doing wonderfully," she reported. "Would you like to see her, Ms. Whitmore?" Lena stood so quickly she almost knocked over her chair. "Please," she whispered. They all walked to the NICU, but Austin held back as Lena approached the incubator. He watched as she pressed her hand against the clear wall, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, my beautiful girl," she breathed. "My precious baby. I'm here now. Mama's here." Ellie turned toward her mother's voice, and something extraordinary happened. The baby's face lit up with a recognition that couldn't be denied, and she made a soft cooing sound that Austin had never heard before. "She knows me," Lena said wonderingly. "She remembers my voice." Austin felt like an intruder in this sacred moment, but he couldn't look away. He watched as Nurse Chen helped Lena put her hands through the ports, saw the way Ellie immediately grabbed her mother's fingers. The baby's other hand still held his stuffed bear, a bridge between her two worlds. "Mr. Hale," Lena said suddenly, turning to face him. Her eyes were filled with tears, but they were tears of gratitude now. "You found her, you saved her life." Her voice broke. "How can I ever thank you?" Austin struggled to find words. For 3 weeks, Ellie had become the center of his world, a miracle that had cracked open his carefully guarded heart. Now her mother had returned, as she should, as was right. But the thought of walking away from Ellie felt like having his heart torn out. "She's amazing," he managed to say. "She's the strongest little girl I've ever met." Lena smiled through her tears. "She gets that from her grandmother, I wish." She trailed off, looking around the high-tech unit. "I have a job at a coffee shop and I've been staying with a friend, but I don't know how I'll manage all this. The medical bills." "I'll take care of everything," Austin said immediately, the words coming without thought. "All the medical expenses, whatever you need." "I couldn't possibly—" "Please," he interrupted, surprising himself with the intensity in his voice. "Let me do this. For Ellie." Their eyes met over the incubator, and something unspoken passed between them. They were two people from different worlds brought together by this precious child and the cruel tricks of fate. In that moment, Austin realized that walking away completely wasn't an option. Not for him, and maybe, just maybe, not for them either. Ellie made another happy sound, still holding both their fingers, creating a connection that neither of them had expected. Outside the windows, snow began to fall again, but inside the NICU, something new was beginning to bloom. Fragile as a newborn's grip, but perhaps just as strong. The next few days unfolded in a delicate dance of adjustment. Austin had arranged for Lena to stay in a suite at his flagship hotel in downtown Boston, despite her initial protests. Now, as he rode the elevator to her floor, he found himself straightening his tie for the 3rd time, a nervous tic he couldn't seem to control. "I brought dinner," he announced when Lena opened the door. She stood there in simple jeans and a cream sweater, her copper hair pulled back in a loose braid, looking both comfortable and somehow out of place in the luxury suite. "You didn't have to," she said, but stepped aside to let him in. Her fingers automatically went to twist a strand of hair that had escaped her braid, that telling gesture he'd already come to recognize. "It's from Vincenzo's." He set the bags on the elegant dining table. "The nurses mentioned you hadn't left the hospital all day." Lena's eyes softened. "They're letting her out of the incubator now. I got to hold her for 2 whole hours." Her voice held a wonder that made something twist in Austin's chest. "Did you know she grabs onto my hair when I hold her? The nurses say it's a good sign, means she's getting stronger." Austin began unpacking the food, his movements precise and methodical. He'd ordered everything the restaurant's chef had recommended for someone who needed nourishment: rich pasta, fresh salad, warm bread. "Have you heard anything from the police?" Lena's expression darkened as she took a seat at the table. "They're still looking for Reed. His credit cards haven't been used since that day." She picked up a fork, turning it over in her hands without seeming to realize she was doing it. "I keep thinking about how I never saw it coming. He seemed so normal at first, you know? We met at the coffee shop where I worked. He'd come in every morning, order the same thing, leave great tips." Austin sat across from her, his own appetite forgotten, as he watched her struggle with the memories. The suite's warm lighting caught the gold highlights in her hair, made her eyes seem deeper, more vulnerable. "The first time I told him I was pregnant, he laughed, like it was some kind of joke." Her voice had gone distant. "When he realized I was serious, he changed completely. Told me I'd ruined everything, that he had plans, a future that didn't include some random baby." She blinked rapidly. Sorry, you probably don't want to hear all this while you're trying to eat. Tell me, Austin said quietly. He'd loosened his tie without thinking, another habit that emerged when he was processing difficult emotions. Lena looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I thought I could handle it alone. I picked up extra shifts, found a better apartment, started buying baby things one piece at a time. I even took these silly little parenting classes at the community center. A small smile touched her lips. Did you know there's a wrong way to swaddle? Because I definitely found it. I've been reading about that, Austin admitted. I have 3 parenting books on my Kindle now. The nurses probably think I'm crazy asking so many questions. They told me about that, actually. Lena's smile grew warmer. About how you visit every day, how you read to her even when she's sleeping. They call you her guardian angel. Austin felt heat rise to his face. He checked his watch automatically, an action that made Lena laugh softly. You do that when you're uncomfortable with compliments, she observed. I've noticed. The fact that she'd been paying attention to his habits made his heart rate pick up slightly. Force of habit, he said. In business, timing is everything. And what about in life? Lena asked, her gaze direct. Is everything scheduled there too? The question hit closer to home than she could know. Austin reached for his water glass, buying time. It used to be, he finally said, until a certain morning run went completely off schedule. Understanding passed between them, and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Outside the suite's floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston's lights twinkled in the winter darkness, creating a private atmosphere in their elevated sanctuary. What was it like? Lena asked suddenly. Finding her? Austin set down his fork, the memory crystal clear in his mind. I almost didn't stop, he admitted. I had a board meeting that morning, presentations to review. The cry was so faint. He closed his eyes briefly. When I saw her there, so small, so cold, I've never felt so angry and so terrified at the same time. But you saved her, Lena whispered. You stopped. You heard her. She changed everything. Austin looked up, meeting Lena's gaze. I should tell you something. The doctors, they told me I can't have children. Something about chromosome abnormalities. I've tried every treatment available, but... He trailed off, surprised at himself for sharing something so personal. Lena reached across the table, her hand covering his. Her touch was warm, gentle, unexpectedly comforting. That's why you were running so early you couldn't sleep. Austin nodded, amazed at her intuition. I keep thinking about fate or God or whatever you want to call it. What are the chances that I'd be there at that exact moment? That I'd hear her? Maybe it wasn't chance, Lena said softly. Maybe Ellie needed both of us. A mother who would never stop looking for her, and a father figure who would move heaven and earth to protect her. The word father sent a jolt through Austin's system. He'd been careful not to think of himself that way, knowing he had no real claim on Ellie. But Lena had said it so naturally, so easily. I don't want to overstep, he said carefully. She's your daughter. And you're the man who saved her life. Lena's hand was still on his, her touch grounding him. I've seen how she responds to your voice, how she calms down when you're near. That kind of bond doesn't happen by accident. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Room service entered, with a dessert cart, something Austin had arranged earlier, remembering how Lena had mentioned missing her grandmother's apple pie. Is that what I think it is? Lena's eyes lit up as the server unveiled a steaming slice of homemade apple pie. The hotel's pastry chef used to work at a diner in Vermont. She swears this recipe is unbeatable. Austin watched as Lena took her first bite, her expression melting into pure pleasure. Oh my God, she moaned. This tastes just like my grandmother's. She looked at him with wonder. You remembered. I pay attention, he said simply. The evening continued, their conversation flowing more easily now. Lena told him about growing up in a small town in Maine, about her dreams of opening her own cafe someday. Austin found himself sharing stories about building his hotel empire, about the lonely nights and empty victories. As the hours passed, something shifted between them, a trust beginning to take root, fragile but real. When Austin finally left for the night, Lena walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said, "not just for dinner, but for everything." "Will you be at the hospital tomorrow?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Of course. Ellie has physical therapy at 10. "I'll bring coffee," he promised. "The real kind, not that hospital stuff." Lena smiled, and Austin felt his breath catch. "It's a date," she said, then blushed slightly. "I know what you mean," he said softly. "Good night, Lena." As he rode the elevator down to the lobby, Austin realized he felt lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed with work emails. His schedule for tomorrow was packed with meetings, but none of it seemed as important as it once had. Tomorrow, he would bring coffee to a woman who was teaching him about resilience and trust, and together they would watch a miracle baby grow stronger. His perfectly ordered world had been completely disrupted, and he wouldn't have it any other way. 2 weeks had passed since Lena's return, and the hospital routine had evolved into something neither of them had expected. Austin found himself rearranging board meetings and delegating tasks he'd never trusted to others before, all to make time for his daily visits. More surprising was how often he found reasons to stop by the hotel suite, bringing takeout or just checking if Lena needed anything. Today, he stood in the NICU watching Lena sing softly to Ellie, her melodic voice carrying the gentle notes of an old folk song. The baby's eyes were fixed on her mother's face, tiny fingers reaching up to touch Lena's copper hair. "Sweet baby mine, rest your head, let your dreams take flight," Lena sang, her voice tender and pure. "Mama's here, have no fear, everything's all right." Austin leaned against the doorframe, his tie loosened after a long day of meetings. He'd rushed over as soon as he could, not even stopping to change out of his tailored suit. Something about watching them together made his chest ache in a way that wasn't entirely unpleasant. "That's beautiful," he said softly when Lena finished the song. She looked up, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "My grandmother used to sing it to me. I never thought I'd—" She swallowed hard. "I never thought I'd get to sing it to my own baby." "The doctors say she can go home soon," Austin said, moving closer. "Her latest tests all came back strong." Lena's fingers automatically went to twist a strand of hair, and Austin recognized the gesture of anxiety. "I've been looking at apartments," she admitted. "There's a small place in Somerville that might work. It's not much, but—" "Stay," Austin said, the word coming out before he could stop it. When Lena looked at him in surprise, he added, "In the hotel suite, I mean. At least until you find something perfect. There's no rush." "Austin, I can't keep accepting—" "Please," he interrupted, checking his watch out of habit. "It's safer. There. We still don't know where Reed is." The mention of Ellie's biological father cast a shadow over Lena's face. "The police called this morning. They think he might have left the country." Austin's jaw tightened. The private investigators he'd hired had reached similar conclusions, though he hadn't told Lena about them yet. "All the more reason for you to stay somewhere secure." Ellie made a small sound, drawing both their attention back to her. She'd grown so much in the past weeks, her cheeks round and rosy, her blue eyes bright and alert. When she spotted Austin, she let out a happy gurgle that made his heart flip. "Da-da," she babbled, reaching toward him with one tiny hand while keeping hold of Lena's hair with the other. The room went still. Lena's eyes widened, and Austin felt like all the air had been sucked out of his lungs. "That's her first," Lena whispered, then looked up at Austin with tears in her eyes. "That's her first real word." Austin stood frozen, overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't name. "I'm sorry," he managed. "I didn't mean to." "Don't," Lena said firmly. "Don't apologize for loving her." She shifted Ellie in her arms. "Would you like to hold her?" He nodded, unable to speak. As Lena carefully transferred the baby into his arms, Ellie immediately grabbed his tie with surprising strength, a habit she'd developed during their daily visits. "Da-da," she said again, more insistently this time. Austin felt tears burning behind his eyes. "Hey there, Ellie Bear," he whispered, using the nickname that had stuck from their first days together. "You're getting so strong." Lena watched them, her own eyes glistening. "You know, I used to be so scared," she said softly. "When I was pregnant, I'd lie awake at night wondering how I could possibly do this alone, how I could be enough." She wiped at her eyes. "And now look at her. She has 2 people who would move mountains for her." "You're an amazing mother," Austin said, his voice rough with emotion. "The way you fought for her, never gave up." "And you're the father she deserves," Lena replied simply. "The one who chose her." The word father hit him differently this time, not with fear but with a profound sense of rightness. Looking down at Ellie's trusting face, he knew he'd do anything to protect her, to make her world safe and beautiful. "I have an idea," he said slowly, still holding Ellie close. "The penthouse above your suite, it's empty. I usually keep it for visiting executives, but—" He met Lena's eyes. "It has 3 bedrooms, a proper kitchen. It would be perfect for Ellie." "Austin, hear me out," he continued. "You'd have your own space, complete privacy. The security is top-notch, and I'd be nearby if you ever needed anything." He checked his watch again, a nervous tell that made Lena smile despite her protest. "You can't just give us a penthouse," she said, but her voice held less conviction than before. "I'm not giving it to you. Think of it as an investment in Ellie's future." He shifted the baby slightly, loosening her grip on his tie. "The truth is, I can't imagine not being part of her life, of both your lives." Lena was quiet for a long moment, watching them together. Finally, she said, "On one condition." "Name it." "You have to let me pay something. Not market rate," she added quickly when she saw him about to protest. "But something. I need to feel like I'm contributing." Austin recognized the pride in her voice, the need for independence. It was one of the things he'd come to admire most about her. "We can work something out," he agreed. "Da-da," Ellie said again, as if settling the matter herself. Lena laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "I think we've been overruled." She stepped closer, adjusting the baby's blanket. The movement brought her within inches of Austin, and he caught the faint scent of her shampoo, something fresh and clean, like spring rain. "There's something else," he said, his heart racing. Would you have dinner with me? Not takeout in the suite, but a real dinner. There's a small Italian place I know. Very private." Lena's hand stilled on the blanket. "Like a date?" "Yes," he said simply. "Exactly like a date." She looked up at him, and Austin saw his own hopes and fears reflected in her eyes. "The nurses have offered to watch Ellie for an evening," she said slowly. "They're quite attached to her. Is that a yes?" Instead of answering directly, Lena reached up and straightened his tie where Ellie had crumpled it. The simple gesture felt startlingly intimate. "Friday night," she suggested, "after Ellie's last feeding." "Friday," he agreed, his voice rougher than he intended. They stood there for a moment, the 3 of them together, while the machines beeped softly and the winter sun cast long shadows through the windows. Austin felt something shift in his chest, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. Ellie yawned, her little face scrunching up in a way that made both adults smile. She still held Austin's tie in one hand, while the other reached for her mother's hair, bridging the gap between them, pulling them closer, creating her own kind of family in her own perfect way. "Dada," she murmured sleepily, and this time the word felt like a blessing. Friday evening arrived with a flutter of nervous energy that Austin hadn't experienced since his first hotel acquisition. He stood in his penthouse closet, adjusting his cuffs for the 3rd time, having opted for a charcoal gray suit without a tie, a deliberate departure from his usual corporate armor. His phone buzzed with a text from Nurse Chen. "Ellie's fed and happy. Stop worrying, Dad." The word dad still hit him like a physical force every time he saw it. He checked his watch. Another 15 minutes until he was supposed to pick up Lena from her suite. His fingers drummed against his thigh as he thought about the dinner reservations at Bella Luna, an intimate restaurant tucked away in Boston's North End. Meanwhile, one floor below, Lena stood in front of her mirror, running her hands down the sides of a deep emerald dress she'd found at a boutique that afternoon. The silk material flowed gracefully to her knees, making her feel both elegant and slightly out of her element. Her copper hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She'd spent an hour working with the hotel salon stylist, something she'd never done before. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection, automatically reaching to twist a strand of hair before stopping herself. "It's just dinner." But they both knew it wasn't just dinner. This was the first time they'd be together without Ellie, as their buffer, without the hospital's fluorescent lights or room service containers between them. At exactly 7 p.m., Austin's knock echoed through Lena's suite. She opened the door to find him standing there, looking devastating in his perfectly tailored suit, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I remembered you saying you preferred these to roses," he said, offering them to her. His eyes traveled over her dress and she saw his throat work as he swallowed. "You look incredible." "Thank you," she said softly, taking the flowers. Their fingers brushed, sending a current of electricity through both of them. "Let me just put these in water." As she moved to the kitchen, Austin followed, his presence filling the space in a way that made her heart race. "I already called the hospital twice," he admitted. "Chen threatened to block my number." Lena laughed, the sound helping to ease some of the tension. "I called 3 times, she confessed. She told me if I called again, she'd start sending fake crisis alerts." Their eyes met, and suddenly they were both laughing. At themselves, at their shared anxiety, at the absurdity of 2 grown adults so completely wrapped around a tiny baby's finger. "We're ridiculous, aren't we?" Lena asked, arranging the flowers in a crystal vase. "Completely," Austin agreed, but his smile was tender. "Shall we?" The drive to the restaurant was quiet, filled with a charged awareness of each other. Austin had opted to drive himself rather than use his usual car service, and Lena found herself studying his profile as he navigated the city streets, noticing how his jaw clenched slightly when other drivers cut him off. Bella Luna was exactly as Austin had described, intimate and elegant without being pretentious. Their table was tucked into a cozy alcove, candlelight dancing across the exposed brick walls. "This is beautiful," Lena said as they settled in. "How did you find this place?" "I actually stayed here when I first came to Boston," Austin replied, surprising her. "There was a small hotel above the restaurant. It's what inspired me to get into the hospitality business." "Really?" Lena leaned forward, genuinely interested. "You've never told me that story." Austin's hand went to his wrist, reaching for a watch that wasn't there. He'd deliberately left it at home. "I was 22, fresh out of college with big dreams and a small inheritance from my grandfather. The owner, Giuseppe, took me under his wing, taught me that true hospitality isn't about luxury, it's about making people feel at home." "Is that why your hotels always have those little touches? The handwritten welcome notes, the local guidebooks?" He looked pleased that she'd noticed. "Every property has its own personality. I want guests to feel like they're part of the city's story, not just passing through." Their wine arrived, a bottle of Tuscan red that the owner himself recommended. As they sipped, Lena found herself relaxing into the intimate atmosphere. "Tell me about your dream cafe," Austin said suddenly. "What would make it special?" Lena's eyes lit up and she unconsciously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "It would be more than just coffee. I want to create a community space, somewhere people can feel connected. Local art on the walls, open mic nights, maybe even a small lending library." "You've really thought this through." "I used to sketch layouts during my breaks at work," she admitted. "Everyone probably thought I was crazy. This barista dreaming about owning her own place." "I don't think it's crazy at all." Austin's voice was soft but intense. "I think you'd be amazing at it." Their food arrived, handmade pasta for Lena, Oso buco for Austin. The conversation flowed easily as they ate, moving from business dreams to childhood memories, from favorite books to embarrassing moments. Wait, Lena said, laughing. You actually showed up to your first board meeting in swim trunks? Austin groaned. In my defense, I had a perfectly pressed suit in my office. How was I supposed to know the sprinkler system would malfunction exactly when I was changing? What did you do? Conducted the entire meeting in wet swim trunks and a suit jacket. Closed the deal too. He grinned, though I'm pretty sure they agreed just to end the meeting faster. Lena's laughter rang out, drawing smiles from nearby diners. Austin found himself mesmerized by the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, how the candlelight caught the gold highlights in her hair. I love your laugh, he said without thinking. The words hung between them, shifting the atmosphere. Lena's smile softened into something more vulnerable. I haven't laughed much these past few months, she admitted, until recently. Lena, Austin started, then paused as their dessert arrived, a shared tiramisu that the chef insisted they try. When they were alone again, he continued, I need you to know something. She set down her fork, sensing the weight in his voice. These past weeks watching you with Ellie, getting to know you. He took a deep breath. I've never met anyone like you. Your strength, your heart, the way you love so completely. I know, this is complicated. There's Ellie and Reed still out there, and we're from different worlds, but... Are we? Lena interrupted softly. From different worlds? Austin looked at her questioningly. Because when I'm with you and Ellie, she continued, it feels like we're in exactly the same world. The right one. Under the table, her hand found his. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they'd been doing this forever. I'm falling for you, Austin said simply, and it terrifies me. Why? Because I've never had so much to lose. Lena squeezed his hand. Or so much to gain. The drive back to the hotel was different from the journey out, charged with possibility rather than nervousness. They walked through the lobby hand in hand, both hyper-aware of every point of contact between them. In the elevator, Lena turned to face him. Would you like to come up? Chen said Ellie's last feeding isn't for another hour. Austin's heart thundered in his chest. Are you sure? The elevator doors opened to her floor and Lena led him to her suite. Inside, the city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a magical atmosphere. They stood in the middle of the living room, the air thick with unspoken words. Lena reached up and straightened his collar, a gesture that had become intimately familiar. I'm falling for you too, she whispered. Austin's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the scatter of freckles he'd grown to adore. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, full of tender possibility. When they parted, Lena's eyes remained closed for a moment as if memorizing the feeling. We should go check on Ellie, she said softly, but made no move to step away. We should, Austin agreed, drawing her closer instead. Their second kiss was deeper, more certain, full of promises neither of them was ready to voice, but both of them felt. When they finally did pull apart, they were both smiling. Come on, Lena said, taking his hand again. Let's go see our daughter. The word "our" echoed in Austin's heart as they made their way to the hospital, their fingers still intertwined. Something had shifted tonight, transforming their carefully constructed world into something new and precious. In the NICU, they found Ellie sleeping peacefully, one tiny hand clutching the stuffed bear Austin had given her that first week. As they stood watching her together, Austin's arm around Lena's waist, both of them knew that this moment, this feeling, this family they were building, was exactly where they were meant to be. The morning Ellie was scheduled to leave the hospital dawned bright and clear, Boston's skyline crisp against a perfect February sky. Austin arrived early, his Range Rover loaded with every possible item they might need, a top-of-the-line car seat, extra blankets, and enough supplies to stock a small pharmacy. He found Lena in the NICU, dressed in jeans and one of her comfortable sweaters, singing softly to Ellie while packing the baby's few hospital belongings. The sight of them together still made his heart skip a beat, even after all these weeks. "Dada!" Ellie squealed when she spotted him, her chubby arms reaching out. "Good morning, Ellie Bear," he said, dropping a kiss on her forehead before turning to Lena. Their lips met in a soft, familiar kiss that still held the excitement of something new. "Ready for the big day?" "Almost," Lena replied, but there was tension in her voice that hadn't been there the night before. She was twisting a strand of hair around her finger, her tell for when something was wrong. "What is it?" he asked, immediately alert. Before she could answer, Dr. Martinez appeared, with their discharge papers. "Everything looks perfect," she announced, smiling at the little family. "Ellie's weight gain is excellent. All her tests are normal, and she's hitting every developmental milestone right on schedule." Austin was about to respond when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it automatically, then felt his blood run cold. It was from his head of security. "Urgent. Reed Carlton spotted at Logan Airport 6 hours ago." He must have made some sound, because Lena looked at him sharply. "Austin? What's wrong?" He hesitated, his hand instinctively going to his watch. Dr. Martinez, sensing the tension, quietly excused herself. "Austin," Lena said again, more firmly this time. "Reed's back," he said simply, showing her the message. "He flew in from Vancouver early this morning." Lena's face went pale, her arms tightening protectively around Ellie. "No," she whispered. "No. He can't. Not today." "Listen to me," Austin said, moving closer to them both. "Nothing is going to happen. I've had security measures in place since day one. The penthouse has the best security system in Boston, and I've hired private protection." "That's what I was trying to tell you," Lena interrupted, her voice shaking slightly. "I found this slipped under the suite door this morning." She pulled a crumpled note from her pocket. Austin smoothed it out, his jaw clenching as he read. "She's my daughter, too. You can't keep her from me forever." "He knows where we are," Lena said, and he could hear the fear she was trying to suppress. "He must have been watching." "I'm calling Detective Wilson," Austin said, already pulling out his phone. "And we're not going to the penthouse. I have somewhere else we can go." "Where?" "My house in Manchester by the sea. It's completely private, gated with its own security system. Reed won't be able to get within a mile of it." Lena looked down at Ellie, who was happily playing with her mother's copper hair, blissfully unaware of the adult's tension. "How long have you been preparing for this?" "Since the day you told me about him," Austin admitted. "I don't leave things to chance. Not when it comes to the people I love." The word hung in the air between them, unplanned but undeniable. Lena's eyes met his, filled with tears and something deeper. "I love you too," she whispered. And despite the fear and uncertainty swirling around them, Austin felt his heart soar. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Detective Wilson arrived with 2 officers, taking statements and arranging police protection. Austin's security team coordinated their movements, setting up a secure route to the coastal property. Dr. Martinez expedited the discharge process, ensuring Ellie was ready for travel. "The car seat is Swedish," Austin explained as he carefully secured Ellie in the Range Rover's back seat. "It has the highest safety rating in the world." Lena watched him double-check every strap, her heart warming despite their situation. "You really do think of everything, don't you?" "Almost," he said, standing and pulling her into his arms. "I never thought about falling in love with an incredible woman who would make my life complete." He kissed her forehead softly. "We're going to get through this, Lena, together." The drive to Manchester by the sea took them along the coast, waves crashing against rocky shores under the winter sun. Ellie slept peacefully in her car seat, while Lena kept glancing in the rearview mirror, checking for any cars that might be following them. We have 3 security vehicles creating a perimeter, Austin assured her, reaching over to take her hand. No one can get close without us knowing. I just don't understand, Lena said, her voice thick with emotion. He didn't want her. He tried to force me to. She couldn't finish the sentence. Why is he doing this now? Austin's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Control, he said grimly. Men like Reed can't stand losing it. They turned onto a private road that wound through dense trees, eventually opening up to reveal a stunning colonial-style house overlooking the ocean. Lena gasped at the sight. Welcome home, Austin said softly, pulling up to the front door. At least for now. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, with large windows capturing the sea view and comfortable furniture that managed to be both elegant and welcoming. Austin had arranged for everything they might need: a fully stocked kitchen, a nursery already set up with a crib and changing table, even a selection of children's books on a small shelf. When did you do all this? Lena asked, watching as he gently transferred a still sleeping Ellie to the crib. I started the day after you agreed to move to the penthouse, he admitted. I wanted us to have a safe place, just in case. Lena wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her face between his shoulder blades. Thank you, she whispered, for thinking of everything, for protecting us. Austin turned in her embrace, cupping her face in his hands. You and Ellie are my family now, he said firmly. I will always protect my family. A cry from the crib interrupted them. Ellie was awake and demanding attention. They moved to her together, and as Austin lifted her out, she immediately grabbed for both of them, one tiny hand clutching his shirt, the other reaching for Lena's hair. Dada, she said happily, then turned to Lena. Mama! It was the first time she'd said it, and despite everything, despite the fear and uncertainty hanging over them, both adults felt tears spring to their eyes. That's right, sweetie, Lena said, her voice trembling with joy. Mama's here. Mama and Dada are both here. Austin wrapped his free arm around Lena, holding his little family close as the winter sun painted the nursery in shades of gold. Outside, waves crashed against the shore and security teams patrolled the perimeter. But in this moment, there was only love. I promise you, he whispered, pressing a kiss to Lena's temple. Nothing will ever tear us apart. As if understanding the gravity of the moment, Ellie snuggled closer to both of them, her presence a reminder of everything they were fighting to protect. They stood there together, watching the ocean through the nursery window, drawing strength from each other and the love that had brought them together. The shadow of Reed's return loomed over them, but in that moment, they were stronger than any fear. They had found each other against impossible odds, had built a family from the ashes of tragedy. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 days at the coastal house had settled them into an unexpected rhythm. Austin had converted the home study into a temporary office, conducting business via video calls while keeping one eye on the security feeds displayed on a secondary monitor. Lena had discovered the gourmet kitchen, filling the house with the scent of fresh-baked bread and homemade soups that reminded her of her grandmother's recipes. That morning, Austin stood at the kitchen island, watching Lena dance around with Ellie while a batch of muffins baked in the oven. The baby's laughter echoed through the house, a sound that still made his heart swell every time he heard it. Business call in 5 minutes, he said reluctantly, checking his watch. Board meeting about the new Chicago property. Lena brought Ellie over to him, and the baby immediately reached for his tie, her favorite accessory. Say, go make lots of money, Dada, Lena teased, her eyes twinkling. Dada money, Ellie parroted, though it came out more like Dada moo moo. Austin laughed, dropping a kiss on each of their foreheads. I'll try to wrap it up quickly. The security team did their morning perimeter check, all clear. Harrison is by the front gate, Williams at the back. We'll be fine, Lena assured him. But he saw her glance at the windows, a habit she'd developed since Reed's return. I think we'll try painting after her nap. I found some baby-safe finger paints in that ridiculous supply closet of yours. I believe in being prepared, he said with a small smile, heading toward the study. The board meeting dragged on longer than expected, full of questions about revenue projections and renovation timelines. Austin was just wrapping up when a movement on one of the security feeds caught his eye. He leaned closer to the screen, his blood running cold. A figure in dark clothing was moving through the trees at the edge of the property, staying just out of the main camera's range. But they'd missed the hidden camera Austin had insisted on installing, the one that caught the man's face in perfect clarity. Reed Carlton. Here. Austin ended the call mid-sentence, already reaching for his phone to alert security. But before he could dial, he heard it. Ellie's cry, sharp and frightened, followed by the sound of breaking glass. He was moving before the cry ended, his heart thundering in his chest. In the kitchen, he found Lena standing rigid by the island, clutching Ellie to her chest. A rock lay on the floor amid shattered window glass, a note wrapped around it. He threw it and ran, Lena whispered, her voice shaking. I saw him, Austin. He was right there. Austin's hands trembled as he picked up the note, rage coursing through him as he read, a mother, a father, and a baby. How perfect. Shame it's all built on lies. Does Loverboy know about Phoenix, Lena? About what really happened there? Lena's face had gone ashen. She was twisting her hair compulsively, a gesture that now spoke of deep distress. Austin, Security first, he interrupted, already dialing. Harrison, he's on the property, north side. Yes, visual confirmation. Lock down everything. While the security team mobilized, Austin guided Lena and Ellie away from the windows and into the center of the house. The baby was crying softly, picking up on the tension around her. Shh, sweetie, Lena soothed, but her own voice was trembling. It's okay, Mama's here, Dada's here. What's Phoenix? Austin asked quietly once Ellie had calmed. What is he talking about? Lena wouldn't meet his eyes. I should have told you, she whispered. I was going to, but I was scared. Scared you'd look at me differently. Lena. Austin's voice was gentle as he cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Nothing could change how I feel about you. She took a shaky breath. Phoenix is where I lived before Boston, where I met Reed. I was married before. Austin's hand stilled on her cheek, but he didn't pull away. His name was Daniel, Lena continued, the words tumbling out now. We were young, stupid. He was violent, controlling. When I finally got the courage to leave, he tried to kill me. Tears were streaming down her face now. Reed was the detective assigned to my case. He seemed so different from Daniel, caring, protective. He helped me get away, helped me start over in Boston. I thought he was my savior. Her laugh was bitter. I didn't realize I was just trading one kind of control for another. Oh, love, Austin breathed, pulling her and Ellie into his arms. When I got pregnant, she continued against his chest. Reed changed, started talking about how a baby would ruin everything, how I was trying to trap him. But I think he was just angry that he couldn't control this. Couldn't control me anymore. Is that why you didn't report him right away? When he took Ellie? Lena nodded. He knew everything about my past, had all the police connections. I was afraid no one would believe me, afraid they'd think I was crazy like they did in Phoenix at first. Look at me, Austin said firmly. She raised her tear-stained face to his. You are the strongest person I've ever met. You survived. You protected our daughter. And I swear to you, he will never hurt either of you again. Our daughter, Lena repeated softly, looking down at Ellie, who had fallen asleep against her chest. Yes, our daughter. Austin's voice was fierce with conviction. Reed may be her biological father, but I'm her dad. The one who found her, who loves her, who would die to protect her. Just like you're her mother, the one who never gave up looking for her, who loves her more than life itself. The security team reported back. Reed had escaped, but they'd found his car and reported the plates to the police. Detective Wilson was on her way with a full team. We can't stay here, Austin said, already formulating plans. He knows about this place now. Where can we go? Lena asked. He'll find us. Anywhere. Not anywhere. Austin checked his watch, a gesture now more of determination than anxiety. I have a property in Montana, a ranch, completely off the grid. Not even the board knows about it. Montana? It's remote, secure, with its own airstrip. We can have the company jet ready in an hour. He looked at her intently. But only if you want to, we can find another way. Lena looked around at the shattered glass, the rock with its threatening note, then down at their sleeping daughter. When do we leave? I'll make the calls. Austin pulled out his phone, then paused. Lena, thank you for telling me about Phoenix, about everything. Thank you for still looking at me the same way, she whispered. Not quite the same, he corrected, touching her cheek gently. I love you more, knowing how strong you are. The sound of police sirens filled the air, and Ellie stirred in Lena's arms. Outside, a storm was rolling in from the ocean, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. But inside, despite the broken glass and the lingering fear, their little family held on to each other, stronger together than apart. As Austin made the necessary calls, his voice low and urgent, Lena began to sing softly to Ellie, the same lullaby she'd sung in the hospital, the one about having no fear when love is near. Looking at them, Austin knew with absolute certainty that he would do whatever it took to keep his family safe. Reed might have thought he could destroy what they had built, but he'd underestimated the power of chosen family, the kind forged not by blood or biology, but by love, trust, and the unshakable bond between a mother, a father, and the precious child who had brought them together. The private jet cut through the night sky, leaving the Boston coastline far behind. Austin sat beside Lena, who held a sleeping Ellie against her chest, the baby's favorite stuffed bear tucked securely under one arm. Detective Wilson had coordinated their departure, creating a diversion with multiple police vehicles while they slipped away to a private airstrip. Try to rest, Austin said softly, noticing how Lena kept glancing out the window. We're safe up here. But he knew sleep wouldn't come easily for either of them. The events at the coastal house had shaken them both, and Lena's revelation about Phoenix had opened old wounds that were still raw. I keep thinking about Daniel, Lena whispered, unconsciously touching the faint scar near her collarbone, a detail Austin had noticed but never asked about. How Reed knew exactly what he was doing, using that history to manipulate me. Austin's jaw clenched. He'd spent the last hour on his tablet reading the Phoenix police reports his security team had unearthed. The details made him sick. Lena's ex-husband had nearly killed her when she tried to leave, putting her in the hospital for weeks. Reed, then a rising detective, had handled the case, positioning himself as her protector only to become another kind of abuser. He won't find us in Montana, Austin assured her, covering her hand with his. The ranch isn't just remote, it's completely secure. I bought it through a shell corporation 5 years ago when I was looking for... He paused. Looking for what? A place to disappear to, he admitted. After the last fertility treatment failed, I hit a dark place. Thought about walking away from everything. The ranch was going to be my escape. Lena shifted Ellie gently, freeing one hand to touch his face. But you stayed. The business needed me, or at least that's what I told myself. He turned to kiss her palm. Now I know I was waiting for you. Both of you. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, announcing their descent. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was breaking, over the Montana Rockies, painting the snow-capped peaks in shades of rose and gold. Oh, Lena breathed, taking in the view. It's beautiful. The ranch's private airstrip was nestled in a valley, surrounded by towering pines and protected by natural rock formations. As they descended, Austin pointed out the main house, sprawling log structure that managed to be both rustic and elegant. The nearest town is 40 minutes away, he explained as they taxied to a stop. The property has its own generators, water supply, even a greenhouse for fresh produce. The security system is state-of-the-art, And I have a team of local ranch hands who are all ex-military. You really did think of everything, Lena said, but her voice held admiration rather than criticism. A rugged-looking man in his 50s waited for them beside a heavy-duty SUV. "Welcome home, Mr. Hale," he said, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile. "Everything's ready as requested." "Thank you, Mike," Austin replied, helping Lena with Ellie as they descended the jet's stairs. "This is Lena and Ellie, family." The word family made Lena's heart skip a beat. Mike nodded respectfully, his eyes softening as he looked at the baby. "Ma'am, little miss, the house is warm and waiting. Mrs. Rodriguez has breakfast ready." The drive to the main house took them through pristine wilderness. Ellie woke up, fascinated by the snow-covered landscape and the occasional deer that bounded away from their approach. Her delighted Dada look at each new sight made both adults smile despite their exhaustion. Inside, the house was everything Lena hadn't expected. While the exterior was pure Montana ranch, the interior was a perfect blend of rustic comfort and understated luxury. A massive stone fireplace dominated the great room, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the mountains. "Mrs. Rodriguez keeps the place ready year-round," Austin explained as a motherly woman in her 60s emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of coffee and fresh pastries. "She's been with me since I bought the property." "Call me Rosa," the woman insisted, immediately fussing over Ellie. "Such a precious bebe. Come, you must be hungry." The kitchen was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of fresh-baked bread and coffee. As they sat around the large farmhouse table, Lena felt some of the tension begin to ease from her shoulders. Ellie was already charming Rosa, babbling happily as the older woman offered her tiny bits of sweet bread. "I've prepared the master." "Sweet," Rosa told them, "and the nursery next door is all ready. Such a lovely room. Mr. Hale had it done last year, though he never said why." Austin looked slightly embarrassed. "I had this idea, this hope that someday I'd have a family to bring here." Lena reached for his hand under the table, squeezing it gently. "And now you do." After breakfast, Austin gave them a tour of the house. The master suite was a haven of comfort, with a sitting area, a luxurious bathroom, and windows that looked out over the valley. The connecting nursery took Lena's breath away. It was painted in soft sunrise colors with hand-carved wooden animals decorating the walls and a rocking chair placed perfectly to watch both the door and the windows. "The security features are subtle but comprehensive," Austin explained, showing her the hidden panels and reinforced windows. "Every entry point is monitored, and the safe room is through here, though we shouldn't need it." "You built all this last year?" Lena asked, watching Ellie explore her new room with delighted curiosity. "Before you even knew, I built it for the family I wished I had," he admitted. "I never imagined I'd actually find you." Lena turned to him, her eyes bright with tears. "All my life I've run from things, from Daniel, from Reed, from my own past. But standing here with you and Ellie, for the first time I feel like I'm running toward something instead." Austin pulled her close, both of them watching as Ellie discovered the toy chest, squealing with joy at each new treasure. "We're not running," he said softly. "We're finally coming home." The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the gold highlights in Lena's copper hair and making Ellie's fair curls glow like a halo. Outside, snow began to fall gently, adding to the sense of peaceful isolation. But even in this moment of tranquility, Austin remained vigilant. His phone buzzed with a message from Detective Wilson. Reed had disappeared again, leaving behind evidence that he'd been tracking them for months. They still didn't know how much he knew about Austin's properties or his connections. Looking at Lena and Ellie, seeing the peace finally settling over them in this sanctuary he'd built, Austin made a silent vow. Whatever it took, whatever he had to do, he would protect this precious family they'd built. Reed might think he knew everything about them, might think he held all the cards, but he'd never understand the strength of the bond between a mother who'd never stopped fighting for her child and a father who'd found his heart in an unexpected miracle. As if sensing his thoughts, Ellie toddled over to him, arms raised in a universal demand to be picked up. "Dada up," she commanded, and Austin complied, swinging her into his arms as she giggled. "Welcome home, Ellie Bear," he whispered, pulling Lena into their embrace. Welcome home. 2 weeks of Montana winter had transformed their world. Lena stood at the great room windows, watching Austin teach Ellie about snow. Both of them bundled up against the cold. The baby's delighted squeals carried through the glass as she discovered she could make footprints in the fresh powder. "He's good with her," Rosa said, appearing beside Lena with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "In all the years I've known Mr. Hale, I've never seen him smile like this." Lena accepted the coffee gratefully, inhaling the rich aroma. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming," she admitted. "After everything with Daniel, with Reed, I never thought I'd find this kind of love." Outside, Austin had scooped Ellie up and was spinning her around, both of them laughing. He'd relaxed here in a way Lena had never seen before, trading his suits for comfortable sweaters and jeans, letting his guard down just enough to truly enjoy these moments with their daughter. The sound of approaching vehicles made them both tense, but it was just Mike returning with supplies from town. Austin had insisted on maintaining their normal routines, not wanting Reed's shadow to steal their peace. "Mail came," Mike announced, as he entered, stamping snow from his boots. "Including this priority envelope for you, Mr. Hale." Austin carried Ellie inside, her cheeks rosy from the cold. He took the envelope with his free hand, his expression darkening as he read the return address. "It's from my investigators." Lena's fingers automatically went to twist her hair, but she forced them still. They'd been waiting for this, the results of the deep background check on Reed, hoping to find something they could use against him. "I'll take Ellie for her nap," Rosa offered, sensing the tension. The baby went willingly, still chattering about snow and footsies as they disappeared upstairs. Austin waited until they were gone before opening the envelope. His jaw clenched as he read, and Lena saw his hand go to his watch, a gesture she now knew meant he was processing something disturbing. "What is it?" she asked softly. "Reed's been busy," he said, his voice tight. "The investigators found a pattern. He's done this before." Lena sank onto the leather sofa, her legs suddenly weak. "What do you mean?" 3 other women in different states, all domestic violence survivors he met through his work as a detective, all of whom became pregnant. Austin's hands were shaking, slightly as he laid out the photos. "All of whom lost their babies under mysterious circumstances." "No," Lena whispered, the horror of it washing over her. He planned this? All of it?" He used his position to find vulnerable women whose past traumas he could exploit. Austin sat beside her, pulling her close. "But you were different. You fought back, you survived, and Ellie?" "He never meant for her to survive either, did he?" The realization hit Lena like a physical blow. "When he took her from the hospital, he was going to—" "But he failed," Austin said firmly. "I found her. By some miracle, I was there at exactly the right moment. And now we have proof of what he's done." Lena's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold as she read it. "Did you really think you could hide from me? I know about the ranch. I know about everything. Time to finish what we started." Austin was already moving, hitting the security alert and calling to Mike. But before anyone could react, the power went out, plunging the house into sudden darkness. "The generators should kick in," Austin said, but they didn't. Someone had disabled them. "Ellie!" Lena gasped, already running for the stairs. Austin was right behind her, his phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. They found Rosa unconscious in the nursery doorway, a small dart protruding from her neck. The crib was empty. "No," Lena moaned. But Austin's hand on her arm stopped her from screaming. "Listen," he whispered. Through the window came the faint sound of Ellie crying, and footsteps crunching in the snow. Without hesitation, they moved, together, years of survival instincts guiding them both. "The safe room first," Austin said, pulling her toward the hidden panel. Inside, he quickly accessed the backup systems, bringing up thermal imaging on a secure screen. 2 heat signatures moved through the snow, one large, one tiny. "He's heading for the old hunting cabin," Mike's voice crackled through the radio. "We've got men moving to surround it, but he's got the baby." "No police," Austin commanded. "He's unstable and he has law enforcement connections. This has to end here now." Lena was already checking the supplies in the safe room, her movements precise despite her trembling hands. "There's a service tunnel that leads to the cabin," she said. "Rosa told me about it last week. It was used during Prohibition." Austin stared at her. "How did you—" "I've survived 2 abusive men," she said grimly. "I make it my business to know every escape route." She pulled out a flashlight and what looked like a hand-drawn map. "Rosa's grandfather helped build this place. She showed me everything." For a moment Austin saw her as Reed must have seen her, not as a victim to be manipulated, but as a force of nature, a mother who would stop at nothing to protect her child. His heart swelled with love and pride. "Together," he said, checking his watch one last time before removing it completely. "No more running away. This time we run toward." They moved through the tunnel swiftly, guided by Lena's map and the sounds of their daughter's cries growing clearer. Above them, they could hear Mike's team moving into position, but down here in the dark it was just the 2 of them. "Reed will expect you to come through the front," Lena whispered as they neared the cabin's foundation. "He knows how you think, how you operate, but he never really knew me. Never understood that surviving Daniel taught me more than just fear." Austin squeezed her hand in the darkness. "Lead the way." The tunnel ended at a hidden door behind the cabin's old stone fireplace. Through the cracks they could hear Reed's voice, soft and menacing. "Shh, little one, don't cry. Daddy's going to make everything right, just like he did for all the others. No more lies, no more playing house with Mommy's new boyfriend." Lena's hand found Austin's in the darkness, squeezing once. They didn't need words. Months of shared love, shared purpose, shared devotion to their daughter had created a bond stronger than any blood tie. Together they prepared to face the storm that had been brewing since that cold January morning, when fate had brought them together. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering their tracks, while inside the cabin, a battle for their family's future was about to begin. The old stone fireplace had a secret that Reed Carlton never knew about. A truth as old as the mountains themselves. As he paced the cabin floor with a crying Ellie, he didn't notice the slight scraping sound behind him, didn't see the shadow that moved within the shadow of the great stone hearth. "Shh, little one," he crooned. But Ellie only cried harder, reaching out into the empty air. "Dada!" she wailed, and Reed's face twisted with rage. "I'm your father," he snarled, his mask of control finally cracking. "Not some rich boy playing house. I'm the one who—" "Put her down." Lena's voice cut through the cabin like steel, and Reed spun to find her standing there, copper hair gleaming in the dim light, eyes blazing with a mother's fury. "How did you—" He reached for his weapon, but another voice stopped him. "I wouldn't." Austin stepped from the shadows on the other side, his presence filling the small space. "It's over, Reed. We know about the others, about what you really are." Reed's laugh held an edge of madness. "What I am? I'm a hero. I saved her from an abusive husband. I protected her. She's mine. I was never yours," Lena said quietly, taking a step forward. "You didn't save me. You just saw someone you thought you could control, but you failed. With me, with Ellie, with all of them. The other babies," Austin added, his voice hard. "The ones who disappeared. Did you think no one would ever connect the dots?" Something dangerous flashed in Reed's eyes. They were mistakes. Weak. But Ellie— He looked down at the sobbing child. "She's different. She's strong. Like me." "She's strong like her mother," Austin corrected. "The woman who never stopped looking for her. The woman who survived everything. You threw at her. And she's strong like her father," Lena added, taking another step. "The man who heard her cry when everyone else walked past. The man who loves her enough to let her be exactly who she is." Dada, Ellie cried again, struggling in Reed's arms, reaching for Austin with desperate trust. I won't let you take her, Reed snarled, backing toward the door. She's my blood. Blood doesn't make a father, Austin said, moving slowly to maintain the triangle they'd formed around Reed. Love does. Choice does. Every diaper I've changed, every nightmare I've soothed, every moment I've put her needs before my own. That's what makes me her father. You're living in a fantasy, Reed spat, playing house with damaged goods, pretending the only thing damaged here is you. Lena interrupted, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. I see you now, Reed. Really see you. You're not a protector, you're a predator. But you made one mistake. Oh? His laugh was ugly. What's that? You thought breaking people made you strong. But real strength. She met Austin's eyes across. The room saw the same love and determination reflected there. Real strength comes from putting broken pieces back together, from building something new from the ashes of the old. Like a family, Austin added softly. In that moment of connection between them, Reed made his move. But they were ready. As he lunged for the door, Lena threw the handful of flour she'd grabbed from the safe room supplies, momentarily blinding him. Austin moved with the precision of countless morning runs, his body responding instinctively to protect what he loved most. The struggle was brief, but fierce. When it ended, Reed lay unconscious, Mike's team swarming in to secure him. But Austin and Lena noticed none of it. They were too focused on Ellie, who had launched herself into their arms with a cry of pure joy. Dada! Ma. They held each other, their small family complete and unbroken, while outside the cabin, the Montana snow continued to fall, covering the darkness of the past with the pristine promise of the future. 6 months later, the garden behind the Montana ranch house bloomed with summer wildflowers, their colors bright against the backdrop of distant mountains. Ellie, now steady on her feet, chased butterflies while wearing a tiny flower crown that Rosa had woven for her. Hard to believe it's been 6 months, Lena said, leaning back against Austin's chest as they watched their daughter play. His arms tightened around her and she felt him kiss the top of her head. The changes had come swiftly after that night in the cabin. Reed's confession had led to the resolution of 3 cold cases, bringing closure to families who had waited years for answers. He would never again see the light of day as a free man. But the biggest changes had been quieter, more personal. The way Ellie now slept through the night, secure in the knowledge that both her parents would be there in the morning. The way Lena had finally started writing her cookbook, filling it with her grandmother's recipes and her own new creations. The way Austin had learned to leave his watch on the bedside table sometimes, choosing instead to measure time in kisses and giggles and precious moments with his family. The Boston properties miss you, Lena teased, though they both knew the hotels were running better than ever, thanks to the team Austin had finally learned to trust. Boston can wait, he murmured. There's something more important I need to do first. She turned in his arms, raising an eyebrow. Oh? Austin reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Unlike every other moment in his former life, he didn't check his watch or calculate the timing. Instead, he simply dropped to one knee in the grass, his heart full of certainty. Lena Grace Whitmore, he said softly. You and Ellie turned my perfectly ordered world upside down, and in doing so showed me what real perfection looks like. Will you marry me? Dada ring pretty, Ellie announced, abandoning her butterflies to inspect the sparkling diamond. Mama cry happy? Lena laughed through her tears, pulling their daughter close as she nodded. Yes, baby. Mama's crying happy. She met Austin's eyes, seeing their whole future reflected there. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As Austin slipped the ring onto her finger, Ellie clapped with delight, then demanded to be included in the hug that followed. They held each other in the summer sunshine, their love as strong and sure as the mountains around them. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the peaks, Lena sang their daughter to sleep with the same lullaby she'd sung in the hospital so many months ago. Austin stood in the doorway watching them, his heart full of a joy he'd never thought possible. "Sweet. Baby mine, rest your head," Lena sang softly. "Let your dreams take flight. Mama's here, Dada's here, everything's all right." Ellie drifted off to sleep, clutching her favorite bear in one hand and a strand of Lena's copper hair in the other. Her peaceful face held echoes of both her parents, not the ones who had shared their blood, but the ones who had chosen her, fought for her, loved her into being their own. As they closed the nursery door, Austin pulled Lena close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For showing me that the best things in life can't be scheduled or planned. They just happen, like a baby's cry in the darkness or a love that rewrites everything you thought you knew." Lena stretched up to kiss him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. Outside their window, the Montana sky blazed with stars, each one a testament to the infinite possibilities that love could create. They had started as strangers brought together by fate and a tiny miracle. They had faced darkness together, fought their way through storms, and emerged stronger. Now they stood on the threshold of a new chapter, their story still unfolding, their love still growing. And in the nursery, Ellie slept peacefully, dreaming the sweet dreams of a child who had never doubted that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in the hearts and home of the parents who had chosen her, and whom she had chosen in return. 2 years later, the January morning dawned crisp and clear over Boston's Beacon Hill, the fresh snow glittering like diamonds in the early light. Austin Daniel Hale maintained his usual running pace along the familiar streets, but now he wasn't alone. Beside him, a jogging stroller moved smoothly over the cleared sidewalks, its occupant giggling at the sight of her own breath in the cold air. "Again, Dada," 3-year-old Ellie demanded, her blue eyes bright with joy. "Fast." Austin picked up the pace slightly, smiling at his daughter's delighted squeal. Her golden curls bounced beneath her winter hat, and she clutched her ever-present teddy bear, now well-loved and slightly worn, as they ran past the spot where their story had begun. The alley looked different now. Where once there had been garbage bins and shadows, there now stood a small children's playground, funded by the Hale Family Foundation. A plaque near the entrance read, "Every child deserves to be found." "Ready to head home to Mama?" Austin asked as they completed their loop. "She's making those blueberry pancakes you love. And baby brother hungry too," Ellie announced with all the authority of a big sister-to-be. At home in the newly renovated Beacon Hill townhouse, they found Lena in the kitchen. Her copper hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her pregnant belly prominent under one of Austin's old Harvard sweatshirts. She was humming while she cooked, the same lullaby that had become their family's soundtrack. "There's my morning runners," she said, accepting kisses from both her husband and daughter. "How was your adventure?" "Mama, we saw our special place," Ellie reported, already reaching for the bowl of fresh berries on the counter. "Where Dada found me." Lena's eyes met Austin's over their daughter's head, sharing a moment of profound gratitude. So much had changed since that cold morning 3 years ago. The Montana ranch had become their summer home, a peaceful retreat where Ellie could run wild and free. Austin had restructured his business, delegating more so he could be present for every precious moment with his family. Lena had opened her dream cafe in the hotel's lobby, its walls lined with local art and shelves of books exactly as she'd always imagined. "Special delivery," called a familiar voice. Rosa, who had refused to stay in Montana once she'd learned about the new baby, entered carrying a basket of fresh muffins. She now split her time between managing the ranch and helping with their growing family, claiming she was too attached to her nieta to stay away. "Tia Rosa," Ellie launched herself at the older woman, who caught her with practiced ease. "Baby?" "Brother kick lots today." "Did he now?" Rosa smoothed Ellie's curls, just like his sister, always dancing. Austin wrapped his arms around Lena from behind, his hands resting on her belly where their son grew strong and healthy. The doctors had said it was impossible, that he couldn't father children, but this miracle baby had proved them wrong. Conceived naturally during their honeymoon at the ranch. "What are you thinking about?" Lena asked, leaning back against him. About patterns, he replied softly. How sometimes they have to break before something more beautiful can form. She turned in his arms, understanding in her eyes. Their path hadn't been conventional. A chance encounter, a baby in need, a love that grew from compassion and courage. But every step, every challenge had led them here. "Mama, Dada, look!" Ellie called from the window. Outside, fresh snow was beginning to fall. "Can we play?" "After breakfast, Ellie Bear," Austin promised, using the nickname that had stuck from those first precious days. As they gathered around the table, Ellie perched on her special chair, Rosa fussing over everyone's portions, Lena radiant with her second miracle. Austin felt the familiar wave of gratitude wash over him. Here was his real empire, his true success. A family built on choice and love rather than blood and obligation. Later, as snowflakes danced outside the windows, Ellie would insist on telling her baby brother the story. Her story, yet again. "Once upon a time," she'd say in her sweet voice, "Dada was running and he heard a very important sound." And they would all smile, remembering how a single cry in the darkness had led them here, to this home, this love, this pattern of joy that would echo through all their tomorrows. The end. If you found an abandoned baby on a cold winter's morning like Austin, what would you do? What if you discovered that this one decision would completely change the course of your life, bringing not only intense challenges, but also the kind of love you never thought possible? In the midst of so many difficult choices that Austin and Lena faced, from deciding to trust each other to fighting to protect their family, which moment in the story touched your heart the most and why? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.